Well, hello and welcome to Audionautic Deep Space Network, episode 34. I can't get over Eonlake's just smiling face there. What a great way to start the episode. Bright and bubbly right from the get-go. This is our music production, technology, and marketing podcast. And we're live right now. If you want to help us reach more eyes and ears, you can hit that like and share it on Twitter, wherever. My name is Sunwarper, and with me today is Eonlake. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
That's it? You're just
Yeah,
good?
short and sweet. Short and sweet.
No,
What you been doing, bro?
no, I was rubbish, and now I'm good. It's good. I'm glad to be here.
That's what we need. Yeah, what you been up to?
What have I been up to? I've been maximizing what little time I have in the studio. Yes, I'm gonna whinge about it again. You know,
That's all right. It's an eternal struggle, I think.
Yeah, it is. It is. The struggle is real. The struggle continues. But I've been using Ableton Note again, like I thought I probably would be. And because I name my projects by key and BPM and so on, it's quite easy just to fire up something on the phone and bash out an idea and then drag it into your set once you're in the studio. I've had a couple of happy accidents that way, so that's good. I kind of like that. Gives me something to do.
I've just been actually writing a whole album.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily do a whole album that way, but if you get stuck on something, you're not sure where to go. If you do something else in isolation and then try and bring it in, it can often do things that maybe don't work, maybe need a little bit of tweaking, because Ableton Note is still MIDI. You can mess around with it. Sometimes it just sets you off anyway, you know, even though you don't necessarily use the bit you did. It's just a way of breaking the state a bit, you know, getting some accidents in there, some happy accidents. Yeah. Pretty much all my best stuff is happy accident.
I think
well, Bob Ross would be proud. Yeah. Bob Ross would be proud. And I am too. What about our Audionautic co-pilot, Curtis? What have you been up to?
I call it the John phase. I've just basically been hitting record. Say what?
In the John.
Sorry. No, I mean you're not far off. That's
what Ableton Note is good for, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. You never know when ideas are gonna strike, I guess. But anyways, what is the John phase for you?
Yeah, I'm glad to know now.
It's just where I hit record, and I don't have. Basically, I've finished everything for Maroon, so I've sent that to you, Sunwarper, for mastering. And so I'm
getting on. Don't worry. I know it's been a week.
We'll get there. Basically, I've been in that place where I've got no real. I have got other projects, but I'm like, I haven't got anything to kind of go to. So I'm kind of like, okay, let's just see what happens. Let's just see what comes out on the John, basically, and just hit record, playing, no kind of project in mind, no kind of thing, just splurging out onto the screen, onto the DAW, just seeing what happening. I call it the John phase, and it's just like, yeah, I'll do it for another month or so before I start writing the album, probably in the new year.
Cool.
So yeah, that's me.
Absolutely
basically
no restraints. Just hit the button, and what happens happens.
Yeah. So I for every album, I'm trying to kind of create a sound selection, kind of like as if it was a live band. Yeah, and so this is where I'm trying to find the new sound. So I'm playing with new VSTs, and I'm experimenting, trying different production techniques and stuff. Made a little bit of techno this morning. So cool. So yeah, yeah. What about you, Sunwarper? Where you at?
Let's see. What have I been up to? More sample flips on the SP. I actually got Koala sampler for the iPhone and iPad to start a sample flip, and I made it on there, and then I moved it to the SP and sequenced it out. I got the 2.0 update. I think it's actually 2.1 now for the SP, and man, that TR mode is incredible. The pattern, it's a step sequencer. So they added a step sequencer to the SP404, and it completely changes the game. But I do want to mention the Koala sampler. If you're looking for a quick little music creation app, I mean, yeah, there's Ableton Note, as we talked about, but this is really cool because it's all sample based. It's basically an even more portable SP404. There's a performance mode where there's all the effects just like the 404. You could do live sets on it even. I mean, it's crazy. And there's some stock samples in there like kicks and snares and bass sounds and things like that. And it's really intuitive, easy to use. So I think it's $5 on iOS. So if you're looking for a little something, little idea generator or something, you can check it out. But yeah, I've been doing that, the SP stuff. And then, as you can see, there's no desk to my right because I'm investing into this update already. I have to put the new desk in here to build it, but we're getting there.
Cool. Get there all around.
Yeah.
So it's been quite a busy front over in LA, that man.
Well, orange, yeah, but yeah,
Orange,
it's been pretty
yeah.
busy. Yeah, I'm sure LA is bustling as well. It always is.
There we go. There we go. We've all been busy. That's
I
what we
bought
like to
some
see.
new hardware.
Oh.
No, you're kidding. You're serious?
Hmm?
Wow,
Was it the Mini Freak?
No, I bought a new mixer.
Oh, nice.
With my PreSonus Studio, what's it called? Studio Live 24. So
Cool.
I bought one of these.
Oh,
Was that like a little MIDI mixer or something, or not?
Oh, look at it. How big do you think my hands are?
I thought you had giant hands, you know. So.
I'm ape or something. What are you trying to say? Yeah, very small. What am I going to use that for, I wonder? We'll see.
Yeah,
I do. Yeah. Is it a nice? Are you feeling like, because you were saying a couple of months ago that your mixer you were not happy with? Is this kind of new thing?
I love my mixer. It's bloody awesome. It's got 24 input. It's a 24 input digital mixer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And 24 channels straight into live because it's using AVB. It's
That's
brilliant.
sick.
And it's really low latency. And it's got loads of plugins, which is why I'm all compressed. I'm actually compressed and expanded on this at the same time.
Oh,
Wow.
I was going to say you sound exceptionally lovely today.
Wow, thank you.
More so than normal. I mean, it's always so lovely. Before we get into the news, though, I want to just mention a couple of things. We are now adding lovingly rendered, I'm just on a lovely thing right now, but rendered and edited versions of our live stream on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So if you want to check it out, they're edited. They have a lot of different flow, and they got some really cool artwork from Kh3rtis. So you can head over there. The links are in the description. And then I also just wanted to mention we have some people in the chat. How are you all doing? And we've got Shady Ridge. How's it going, Shady? And Hydro Fighter, who are our patrons.
Yeah.
Kh3rtis,
I was listening. I might be drinking tea. But yeah.
I know sometimes you drink that tea and you think I'm going to talk for a lot longer, and then I just kind of abruptly stop, and you're like, oh, shit, what do I do now?
This show is brought to you by our patrons who we love. And yes, Hydrofighter, Shady, etc. Thank you ever so much. And yes, if you are not a patron and you like what we do, consider becoming a patron. You have special access to a lot of stuff that you don't see behind the scenes. We have a Twitter group, which is just us, where we share ideas and chat and talk, etc. And you get extra, what's the phrase? You get extra stuff, essentially. Early access to our shows. For example, Binary Stars is going to be moving onto Mixcloud from next week because of certain aspects. It's going to be moving onto Mixcloud, so it's going to be audio only. But we will still be rendering out the video aspect of everything, which you will only get if you're a patron. You'll get a special link, and that will go across and from another place where basically you can watch it as opposed to just listen to it, essentially. So stuff like that. So if you like what we do and you want to support us, consider being a patron. It's only that starts at $2 a month.
Yeah, and you can head over to patreon.com/audionautic. The link is also in the description if you want to check it out. And I should also mention that we've got something pretty new and exciting for the patrons coming up very soon we'll be talking about. So I can't wait to reveal that and all that. But just a little teaser for now. I also, in the chat, Hydro Fighter said, sorry, I missed the live Bandcamp performance. When will that be up on YouTube? Yeah, sorry. I meant to mention I did a Bandcamp live performance, a DAW set on Bandcamp of Radiant Visage tracks. Hydro Fighter, it's on my YouTube now. You can head over there after the show if you want to check it out.
That works nicely. So yeah, let's slide off into the news. So it's 26 minutes past the hour. We got a lot of gear as per, because we know that everyone likes talking about gear. We like talking about gear. So we've got some software and we've got some hardware. We're going to start with the
more
hardware.
So than just gear, though. Free gear. We've got a lot of that to talk about today because we love dreaming about gear we can't afford, but we also love gear that we can get for free. That's awesome, and we want to spread the love and the news about it.
Exactly, yeah. So we're going to start with Warm Audio. Warm Audio have been doing some really interesting things. Sunwarper, take us through this, yeah? Yeah,
so Warm Audio, they make some really cool, affordable clones of sought-after microphones, preamps. They have like 1176 clones, the compressor that's really famous and sought after. And now they're getting into the pedal game. So they've got this, I think it's a Centavo, which is a overdrive They claim it's one of the most sought after overdrives. It's very clean in what it does. It's almost like a treble booster. You want to hear some of that sound? Ooh, that was abrupt. You got to fade that in, bro.
Yeah. There's that one.
Yeah. And there's that one, and then there's also the warm drive, which I think is a little more distortion, like apparent. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Okay, let's put this one up here as well.
Yeah, that's definitely a little more distorted.
I mean, that's beautiful. That's very big.
They make some awesome stuff. I have a preamp from them, and I used to use it on everything. I would put the bass through it to get some tube distortion. They had one setting that's very old, like old tube sound, and then they had another that's more clean and stuff, but it's awesome. I don't think it's working anymore. I haven't had it plugged in for a while, but once I get the new studio up, I'm going to see if it's working.
I mean, Shady last week was talking about adding some new pedals to his pedal board last week, Shady, is there something what are you looking for in particular? Is there anything in general? I mean, I added a Vox wah pedal to my pedal board.
Can't go wrong with that.
I'll go wrong with that.
Shady, I have the old Jimi Hendrix one that's just collecting dust in the garage. I found it and was like, I haven't used this since like 8th grade.
Are you DIing into the computer and everything's basically MIDI?
Well, I have a guitar pedal board or a pedal board over there that you can't see it, that I just haven't used for the longest time because, like I was saying, before I do this studio build, nothing's plugged in and I'm too lazy to go, I got to unplug the two things I have to plug this in. I don't want to deal with that. So once I get the studio set up, I am going to have it set up. And I do have some pedals that I use, like that Mr. E, the fuzz distortion. I use that like all the time. But yeah, I'm mostly DI. And Shady Ridge says he has the Vox Wah as well, and he loves it. Yeah,
it's beautiful. I had the Jim Dunlop back at Crybaby back in Vietnam, and I sold it to come here. And
that's something to cry over.
I know, but it was really heavy, and I had a baggage allowance, and so I picked up another one. I picked up the Vox, and I love it. It's I think I prefer it to Crybaby. I think.
What is different about it that you prefer, if you can name it? I know sometimes it's just kind of like emotion.
I think it's got a bit of a bigger range in terms of the frequency where it can go, the filter.
Yeah.
And I think when you get to the high ends as well, it's less. Sorry, when you get to the low ends, it's less muddy, and when you get to the high ends, it's less sharp. I like that.
Maybe not as resonant.
Yeah, that's the one. So
that's nice.
My telly is quite a resonant beast. I love it.
Is it single coil?
It's a single coil one.
Yep.
And so I roll off the highs because otherwise it's too tiny. It's very 1950s, very I can't remember the name of it. It's very 50s basically. But yeah, but this works nicely. It's a nice counterbalance.
Do you have that neck pickup that's like in the encasing, that like silver or metallic?
One,
no, you just have the pickup. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen your Telecaster. Because you used to have a Strat, right? Oh
yeah, I had a Strat.
That's sick. Oh, I love the maple fretboard. I got my telly back there.
Yeah,
they could be best friends, you know. They're little guitar buddies.
I had a Strat back in NAMM.
Yeah, that was
it. I sold it to come here.
Yeah.
And this time I was like, I could buy another Strat, or I could try something new. I'd never had a telly. I've played a telly, but never had one. I was like, I'm gonna have a telly for a while.
You can't go wrong with tellies, man.
No,
I've almost switched completely to Fenders at the moment. I don't touch my Gibsons, and I feel bad, but I don't know. I think just because I go mostly clean tone now, I'm just like really vibing on the Strat.
Yeah, same here, and well, obviously for the telly, I do miss my Strat. I really do.
Yeah.
I love the telly; it's really nice, but I do miss the.
It's a little jangly, right?
It is. It's a little jangly.
Yeah. So, see, I have a humbucker in my neck, so I usually use that because it kind of masks the jangliness of a telly. But man, when you put that bridge on,
it makes it work.
Yeah. And Shady Ridge in the chat says for pedals, he's looking at getting a Univibe, MXR Phase 90, and Catalan Breed Echo. I don't know the last one, but those other two, man, the Phase 90 is sick.
I used to have had a Phase 90 in Vietnam, sold it to come here,
man, jeez. You're making my heart hurt, just like all these things you sold. Oh,
I sold, yeah. It's what happens when you have to kind of move around.
Yeah, I get it, though. I get it. But now you can get a Centavo.
I think that's kind of where it's going to go.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But
Eonlake, do you have anything to add about pedals? We've been rambling on about guitars and whatnot, and you've just been laughing at us. I saw it.
They've got 1/4-inch jack inputs. That means anything that's got a 1/4-inch jack,
Yep,
you can put in them.
Yeah.
I've got a bass preamp and a Zoom multi-stump that I with.
A multi-stump.
Oh, those are sick. Like
yeah. Yeah.
Also, I noticed it's got a power supply that's got about 7 9-volt feeds on it, and I've used 2. So I'm thinking,
there's always more to get.
What do with the other one?
Are there any pedals you're looking at?
I'm thinking about the Space Echo. Definitely the big one.
Is that the one they put a pedal version out? Yeah.
I want to get that and maybe the big muff.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna say the big muff because we talked about it last week. Yeah.
Imagine running a Moog through the big muff. I mean, you've got to really, haven't you?
I would be love. Yeah.
And a 5-string bass, that low B's got to go through a big muff at some point.
Oh yeah.
Well, you don't love your bass if you don't do that to it.
I think I've got a distortion and an overdrive, and I'm missing a fuzz. I'm really missing a fuzz. I could do with a big muff like that, or I could just do with any form of fuzz. I'm very underrated, I feel.
Yeah. Well, this Palmer bass amp thing that I've got does do distortion and saturation. It's kind of
distortion on the bass. Oh,
I would like to get something proper for that, though. I think.
Yeah.
And I haven't tried putting drums through it yet. Strangely.
You gotta try.
Let's talk about as much as guitar is fun. We have a lot of free stuff to get through.
Yeah, and there's a lot of synth players here and producers, so
people have to know about the free stuff.
We do like to know about the free stuff. So the other thing we've got is a new filter coming in from Tal. The Tal Filter 2. Is this Sunwarper? But it's not Eonlake. I didn't do it.
Yeah, no, it's me. I'm not actually sure if it's new or if it's old. Eonlake may know because he knows every plugin known to mankind.
In the past, I'm sure they had an old sort of like 303 emulator.
I think this is probably it because I was watching. So each week for those sample flips that I do for DiBiase's Diner, DiBiase, the producer, goes on Serato's Twitch and makes a beat with the samples, and then he will listen to all of the submissions. If anybody makes beats or anything or just want to try something new, head to their Discord. I can put a link in there later or in the comments. But he was using this when he was making his beat, and it was awesome because you can automate and just it's got an LFO, not automate necessarily, but you can. But it has an LFO, so you can create those like filter wobbles and things like that. It just had this awesome sound to it. So if anybody's looking for a cool filter, check it out. And really quick, Bendu is in the chat. How you doing, Bendo? Bendu, what's up?
Nice to see you, man.
Hey.
Very high. Hello. Very high.
Shady Ridge is getting a big muff too. We got to go back to the pedals for 1 second. Yeah.
There we go. That's what you want.
No one else is allowed to until I've got mine.
You've heard it. He put a decree out. You can't do it, Shady. Sorry. Maybe get a Centavo.
It's cool that you've brought that the Tal filter up. I said this morning I was making some techno and I was thinking, oh, the gate isn't quite working for me. So definitely gonna download that.
Check it out. Yeah, he was putting it on his beat and it was sounding so sick for the LFO to it. I mean, it was awesome. And it's free, so
I think those filters are kind of one of those underrepresented in our world, because obviously a filter is a filter, and like I did it for years. I was like, it's just a filter. So I always used to use like the Fruit Loops one and then the Ableton one when I switched to Ableton. And then you think, I get a third party, and yes, there's a bit of latency, it takes up a bit of CPU, but generally speaking, do a lot more with it. It's really good.
Soundtoys one is good.
The one what?
There's a Soundtoys one, isn't there?
I haven't used the Soundtoys one. I haven't used that.
Phase Mistress. Yeah.
Phase Mistress. Oh, that sounds so mysterious.
Phase Mistress? Is that the one you're talking about? I thought it was a phaser.
No, I'm thinking. You keep on talking.
Okay. Well, really quickly, I'll say Bendu responded. He said he's at work. Sorry to hear that, but we're happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us. Have you gotten anything new in the modular world lately? I'm curious to hear.
We'd like to know. Yeah.
This week.
What's that, Eonlake?
I've been listening to him this week.
Oh, nice.
He did a track on the Castles in Space Participation album. Really cool.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And that's if you are a subscriber to the Castles in Space, right?
Subscription members only, yeah.
Might have to do that at some point. Yeah, might have to do that at some point. But yeah. Okay. So that's the fab filter, and finally, our last piece of this one is completely and utterly free. Sample science.
Well, so was the last one, though. To be fair.
It's been a minute since I checked out sample science, and they have done so much since I last checked out what they're doing, and the majority is free. Everything is free. I've been going
heard of these
samples. They're great. I really
wait.
like
Was that guitar one you showed a long time ago? It might have even been a Star Stream where you were doing guitar, like acoustic guitar.
No, that's Ample Guitar. That's Ample Guitar. Which
there's another plugin if you're looking.
there is a guitar. I will say there is a guitar here on Sample Science.
Okay. Process Guitar, was that the one?
That
one
Process
too,
Guitar, and you got Clean Electric Guitar. The electric guitar, to be honest, I'm not that happy with, but Process Guitar is pretty
guitar
nice.
Samples are like electric clean guitar samples and really quickly Eonlake, rather than raising his hand in the video, decided to type in that the filter he was talking about was Filter Freak. That's the Sound Toys plugin, but it's not free. Yeah, it's definitely not free like the Tau one.
Yeah.
I think Tau makes those Juno 60 or Jupiter. Don't they have a Uno 60 plugin or something? Howard probably knows.
Who does?
Tau, the guys that made that filter. I think they have like a Juno.
I used to have a few VSTs of theirs that I can't run anymore because they're like 16-bit or something, and they were always well known for their sound. They were kind of aping classic synths.
Yeah, the 101, right? The SH101, I think, is one of the ones they stopped.
Yeah,
like a legacy one. Yeah. Anyways, Curtis, I'm sorry. We went on a random tangent there.
Random tangents are always fun. That's what keeps this show on the toes. So I wanted to focus on these three for now. There's so much. I could go on about them forever, but we've only got an hour show, so I'm not going to do that. But basically, I've been going down again. I'm building things for my next album. So I was looking at kind of like ethnic traditional instruments. And these three came up: the singing bowl Renaissance, the zither Renaissance, and the sitar Renaissance. Now, if you don't have contact, which a lot of people don't have contact, or native access, native access, because they've got like India stuff and they've got bells and traditional stuff. If you don't have that, these three are really nice. They're free, and you can pay for an upgrade to get a wider sound range, but they are free at the beginning. But yeah, sitar Renaissance, zither Renaissance, and singing bowl Renaissance.
You sold me on the sitar because I've been trying to get some sounds like that. I was thinking of restringing one of my guitars to have. I watched this video of a guy that restrung his guitar to have two very high, like E strings or something like that to get that resonant drone sound. I was like, ooh, that's cool, but a sample, it's much better than restringing a guitar.
It does work. Now, it's like I say, if you don't have contact, it's a lovely different way of doing it. You can pay for nothing. I think if you want to get a wider range, you can pay for a little bit more. It's multi usage, and if you have the free contact, it works even better. But you don't. You can just use it as a standalone. I just use it as a standalone. Really nice, really good sounding as well. A little bit, if you tweak it a little bit of reverb, and maybe just sometimes play with it a little bit.
You got to give us some sound demos sometime.
Let's go here, for example. If we come here.
Oh, there we go. Very cool.
Yeah, so you've got that detuned kind of sitting outside the scale sound. Really nice. Really Nice. So yeah, really cool. If people are interested, I have started playing around and twiddling and doing stuff. And so if you want to see what it's like when you put it into something that is not a stock beat, then yeah, let me know.
Not a stock beat. Yeah, I mean, it sounded cool. Have you gotten any drones out of it, like those resonant drones that sitars do?
Yeah, so this is on the high end of it, but you can go on the low end, and yes, you can get those really nice long swinging tunes out there as well.
Because that's what I'm looking for, those resonant drones. Over in the chat really quickly, Bendu says, nothing new for me lately. Plenty to keep me busy. going to Synthplex in Burbank this weekend, so I might have some gas after. Yeah,
Nice.
I get that.
There we go. That's what you need.
I
to
get
see.
that. Yeah, I forgot that was happening. I'm not that far from Burbank, but
There you go. There's your
I
weekend
don't
split.
I don't need to look at synths and want more. We already cover enough as is.
I get there. So yeah, those are a lot of those are our free plugins and our new gear for the week. We'd like to know what you've been playing around with. What is it that's taking your fancy? Is there anything that we've missed? There's lots of things that we missed because there's so much out there. Let us know, because the more we'd like to know more, source more, play around more, and the more we can, yeah, check it out. Very much so. Should we move to the round robin? It's 42 minutes past the hour.
Yeah,
We've
let's
got
do
big
it.
marketing this week.
Yeah.
We have got a big marketing this week, but first we'll come to the round robin. This is the segment in the show where basically just have a bit of a conversation. One of us will bring a topic of discussion to the table, and we'll just sit and talk about it, share our ideas, and just kind of pally on around, see what's going on, essentially.
Yeah. A lot of times they're about different, should we say, existential or metaphysical conundrums we face as musicians trying to work on music and have jobs and things like that. Other times they could be about anything, but they seem to typically revolve around that sort of issue.
Yeah, so it might be the ethics side of it, I suppose. We have a big important section in the marketing towards the end of the show, and this kind of teases into it a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
So I don't know if you guys saw in the news this week, but Bono from U2, he apologized for forcing all people who bought an iPod to have his album on there. Right? Did you see that?
No, I didn't see it, but I remember that, and I was like, "How do I get this thing off?"
Yeah.
That must be the thing that really started the backlash against them.
It must be, yeah. It's like Nickelback.
People hated that. They really hated it.
I mean, exactly. And this is, I remember buying my little iPod Mini. You know those little rectangular ones? They had it on there. I was like, dude, why? I don't even listen to you two. But yeah, this got me thinking. It's like, okay, so he's essentially apologizing for shoving his art down people's throats, right? Which is
sorry that I gave you that.
But essentially, that is that is a perfect example of someone going too far with their advertising. Someone going too far with kind of like saying, "Hey, buy my music, listen to my music,"
extending their reach a bit.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like the definition of overreach or oversaturation. You know, over promotion.
Exactly. There's a definition of doing it, and so that's
in a textbook, there's no definition. It's just an iPod with YouTube. How to over promote your music?
Yeah. Just Bono.
Yeah. And it's like, sorry.
So we have on the one end of the spectrum we have Bono, right? And then on the other end of the spectrum we have we don't have a clear-cut example, but somebody, something, some entity that just puts stuff out into the ether and doesn't say anything about it at all. No promotion, no nothing. Doesn't even say anything. No presence online other than the music that they put out, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, let's just take that as for now, right? And obviously, the right in inverted commas way to do it is somewhere in the middle, somewhere on the spectrum, somewhere where you are politely or nicely saying, "Hey, this is my music. Let's do something." But you're obviously not like, "Listen to my music. Come on, let's do it." You know. And so I wanted to just bring it to the table, and I wanted to ask you guys and the guys watching and the guys watching back, where does the balance lie for you? How do you stay comfortable with marketing and music the best way that you can effectively? What do you do so it's not just a case of just buy my music, buy my music, buy my music? What is your kind of overall philosophy of kind of striking that balance between over marketing and under marketing? As the marketing guru here today, Sunwarper, maybe you should kick us off.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's quite a lot there to unpack, but I think one of the biggest things I've been discovering, especially when it comes to maybe Reddit or even Instagram and all of its horrible algorithmic decay at the moment, is kind of answering questions or showing something rather than just being like, "Here's my music." it's like, this is how I use the step sequencer on the SP404. And if you want to check out the track I made, here you go, or something like that. That seems to be a much better way to do it than just saying, go listen to my music. Because what is compelling someone to check it out if you're just saying, here's my music, But if you're giving them a reason, like I use the SP404, people that like 404 stuff, oh, that's how he uses the step sequencer. That's cool. Oh, and it's a cool track. I'll go check it out. It's like that extra step, not extra step, but that extra bit that's convincing enough to get someone to check it out.
So it's giving them an alternative that they can take something from it, as opposed to just consume.
I suppose it's giving something. It's like give and take, I suppose, but it's giving something as well. Like here's how I do X, Y, or Z, answering a question, and it also works in the favor of it becomes more searchable in that way. I mean, who's searching necessarily for like Sunwarper Radiant Visage? But if I put SP404 and Circuit Tracks live set, here's how I do the live stuff or something, it's answering a question people may ask, and so you're driving people there that wouldn't be driven there just by your name or by the album name or something like that.
Makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Eonlake, where are you sitting with this?
It's a real creator approach to it, and I think it's a good idea. Yeah, adding value, offering value.
Sorry to interrupt. That is probably the best way to phrase it, and I was blanking. Adding value, yeah. Beyond just being like, go listen to my music, you're giving value to your music and to the person watching. That's going, oh, I'm learning something from it,
Yeah, and if you don't like the music, you might come away with an idea of how to try something yourself.
Yeah.
Win-win. It's good. I don't do that. What I do, I try...
Sorry, I love it. That's good. It's good. I don't do that.
I do the reverse psychology approach. I say, don't listen to my music.
I find myself always listening to your music too, so I guess it works.
Like it. It's not for you. No. I think it's a very real question, isn't it? I mean, let's face it. I don't know how many producers you know, but I know a lot. I could bang on all day about everyone I know who makes music and is really fucking good at it. I know lots of people who are generating really good content. And how do you differentiate yourself in that? I don't know. I mean, it's difficult. It is something I struggle with. I tend to, in all honesty, I do tend to look to Sunwarper a bit, for inspiration how to do things like this. I'm really not doing much of it myself at the moment, but that doesn't mean that I don't plan to in the future.
Yeah.
And I think I have an ethos about it, about trying to be a real person and to not say the things that everyone else says because it doesn't sound very sincere, So if I try and promote my music, I try and talk about what it was that made me do it, the fact that I like doing it for a certain reason, that what it represents to me or something, rather than just go listen to my new track, like billions of others hitting the platforms every day. I try and just get out there, be a normal person, deal with people as a human being, try and write the best music I can, and just try and talk about what it means to me in the hope that it will mean something equivalent to other people in whatever numbers. I mean, even if it's a handful, it works for me,
Hold on, that's a good tie into some of the chat. Sorry to interrupt. I just If you've got an idea, just write it down. I really want to answer this. And since there's a latency as well, if anybody in the chat either has questions or wants to talk about how they do this, let us know. Like Shady Ridge says, that's a tough question when it comes to promoting other artists. Yeah, I suppose. I mean, one of the things, if you're working with an artist, you could ask them to film in that manner, and then you post about it and generate the questions or things like that. Or interviews, maybe, things of that nature. Bendu says, what about non-musicians, though? How do you add value for them? So that's something I'm still figuring out. But I will say, too, this is what brought me to the point of Eonlake, is that story is key, and how you talk about the story. And it still has to tie into somehow getting that story and your music in front of those eyes and those ears. And that's probably down to playlists, blogs, anything like that, radio, which is great. But I always think of the example of, I think it's Bon Iver, his first album, which I'm completely blanking on the name, but is it For Emma, Forever Ago or something like that? It was a breakup album, and he like went into a cabin in Wisconsin alone and wrote all the songs, or that's at least, you know, the story that was said or something like that. And again, this has been years ago, so I may be getting some of the details wrong, but the fact that I even remember some of those details from that many years ago shows you how powerful the story is there, and that it will stay in your mind, and it brings people to listen. If you're going through a breakup, you go, oh yeah, that's a breakup album, I'll go listen to that. There's that one Beck album, Sea Change, that was a breakup album. Not saying everything has to be a breakup album. I just remember those because they're some of my favorite albums, and it's a thing that a lot of people deal with all the time. So it's a common thing that's that you can connect with. So somehow finding a way to connect with your story, or just having an interesting story. Like Curtis, you make those incredible stories and deep worlds you have. So I'll let you get into that. But I don't know, Howard, if you have anything else you want to add.
Well, I thought the same thing as Ben did when you were talking. You know, okay, well, that's great for musicians, but on reflection, my brain carried on going for a few seconds more. I thought, well, I think there is, you know, there are people who like music and are mildly interested in what you're doing.
That's because, also what I was going to say.
They know what a drum kit is. But when there's somebody upstairs, you know, on stage performing electronic music with a bunch of kit, and they're not really sure what the person's doing, there's no sounds coming out. They could have just hit play on something. So I think maybe there is a mild curiosity from some people about, well, what is all that about? You know, how do they go about doing that? And the answer is a lot of different ways. So yeah, I think it's a valid point, but I think at the same time, maybe it's not entirely worthless for non-musicians. I think sometimes they're a little bit curious about what's being done.
Yeah, I was also going to say, don't forget how many musicians in the world there are, and people that use plugins or even just dabble in music making. You still may reach them with some of those things. Maybe someone who makes music for fun saw somebody famous using an SP404. I'm just using that because it's literally the only thing right in front of me at the moment as I move my desk. And goes, oh, I want to buy an SP404, and searches some how to use an SP404, and it pops up and they watch it. You're still reaching some of those slightly out of or adjacent parameters, whatever you want to call it.
You know, non-musicians too. So if they're listening to it, it might bleed over into something else, and they go, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what a sampler is, but I quite like that tune.
Yeah. Curtis? Sorry, that was a long, drawn-out elaboration.
It's a very good elaboration, and it kind of styles in nicely. Like, I mean, stemming from Bendu's comment, what about non-musicians, though? Again, I think there's a visual aspect, especially if you're playing live. I always remember, Ben, when you sent your playthrough for your contribution to the Audionautic compilation last year, where you had that trippy trail visual aspect to the video that you put on. I still think about it on a near daily basis, and I'm like, that's sick. And I think it's visuals like that, because there's ways in which you can incorporate visual aspects into the audio side of your stuff. You can generate mandalas and stuff, for example, which you can do if you're playing live, which even non-musicians, they can see that. And a lot of things, like, for example, push through, like people like Deadmau5, the visual aspect to the live playing, that's what kind of triggers people. It's an experience kind of thing, you know. Obviously, I mean, there are certain limitations to that. That's a whole nother expensive side of gear, but I mean, it's a very good way of doing it. I think as well, from Shady's perspective, when it comes to promoting other artists, I'm the same. I'm all right at promoting other people. And I'm like, that's what Audionautic Records is about. I love talking about other people's music. When it comes to my music, I'm like, hi. I only pee out. But what we did, exactly what Shady says. It gives the listener the background. There's a story.
Well, he says the liner notes. There's a chat above it, but he says that's why I think liner notes are important to a release. It gives the listener the background, and you can also even do that in promo posts or social media posts. Which is what we started doing with when I did Fragments 2 and you did Radiant Visage. We had the playthroughs where we kind of built a little bit more of the story. We kind of we played some tunes, we listened to them, we asked questions to each other, and we gave them a bit of background. In your case, it was kind of like the production side of it and kind of how it worked, where they came from. From my end, it was a little bit more of a delve into the lore, the universe. Man, that got dark.
I mean, it's a dark album. It's a good album, though. we're getting closer to Shoal, and it's dude, it gets dark. So yeah, so you have to have a little bit. You have to have a little bit of the darkness before you can have the light.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So
Very
yeah,
Taoist of you.
So yeah, and I think that's a great way of doing it in a sense. That's what we try and do here on Audionautic, is we're kind of giving a platform to other people to kind of shout where people would be interested, musician or non-musician. It's about the story. The key thing is the story, and finding a way to kind of emulate that either visually or through radio or whatever. That's a really good
That's a nice segue. I just wanted to mention and say thank you to everyone who helped us reach 300 followers on the Audionautic Radio playlist.
Thank you.
We've been updating it weekly. There's lots of incredible, unique, chill, awesome electronic music, ambient music, down tempo. And if you want to check it out and help all of the artists on there grow, you can find it in the link in the description. And you are also welcome to submit. You can send it to me, Sunwarper. That's my social tag on everything, or the Audionautic Twitter, and I'll get back to you about it.
Yeah,
it's a damn good listen.
It is. It's good fun, and we say that's completely
unbiased. Well, he's unbiased as he doesn't do any of the updates or anything, so I'll take that.
But yeah, so thank you very much for sharing Eonlake and Sunwarper, and for the guys in the chat as well.
Thank you for your opinion as well.
I can't really.
I wanted to get yours partly because you have that rich story to it. And you mentioned perfectly when we were doing that playthrough, you were able to talk about each track, where the story's going. I mean, I love that. It's almost, and hopefully at some point, I know you've been talking about it, you can go in a multimedia direction where you have the artwork, the visuals, video, maybe live sets with visuals. I don't know. Something to that effect. But just fleshing out that story in multiple aspects and avenues, I think is a really cool way to create it. And like you mentioned with Deadmau5, I mean, he has a very apparent brand, that mouse head. He wears it. He has those digital renders of it as his artwork and things like that. There's a story to it, even if it's not discussed. I mean, it's something you can latch onto.
Even the name Deadmau5, where do you get that name from? He got it because when he was picking apart his gaming computer one day, they found a Deadmau5 in there, and it's like, boom, that's a story. It's a little micro story.
And how many years ago did you read that?
Oh God, I must have been what, 13, 14?
That's what I'm saying. Just like with Bon Iver and Beck and things like that. It's those interesting stories that, nothing to do with gear, to answer Bendu's question to a degree at least. It's those interesting stories, and they're hard to come up with. I know, YouTubers, if you watch about how to grow your YouTube, they say make good videos, make good thumbnails. Well, that's great. How do you learn to do that? I mean, it's partly trial and error. It's partly studying and watching what other people are doing. So it's the same thing. It's easy to say, that's memorable. Okay, well, how do we incorporate that into our own? And that's what we try to answer to a degree. And we're learning too. Like, what were you saying?
Don't do something rubbish. Do something good.
Okay, great.
Don't be shit.
Do something everyone will love.
Yeah, which is totally subjective anyways. So, Bendu, hopefully that answers your question to a degree. And Shady, if you have anything else that you do or anything, let us know. Bendu as well. Anybody else in the chat, or if you're listening to this later on Apple and Spotify, it might just be Spotify, but we can now ask questions on the podcast. So this will probably be what I make the question. So if you're listening to it later, let us know, respond as a comment, and I'll try to pin it because it'll get posted up there.
I'd like to see it. I think just the final word on this is, again, just to reiterate what you're saying about repetition and kind of like just trial and error.
Yeah.
Because we've been doing this for 2.5 years now, pretty much. And I mean, Kh3rtis has been around for about 5 years. I don't know how long. Sunwarper has been around for more longer, plus Celeste as well.
Well, on my little sticker, established 2018.
Well, there you go. All right. Okay. So we've got. And it's so it comes to the Audionautic. We did we've just started a new cycle of workflow here at Audionautic where we're cutting up videos and making content for you guys. And with that comes a new artwork. And for the first time in 2.5 years, I actually feel like I made a decent thumbnail. And that is three decent thumbnails. And that's the first time thumbnails are thumbnails. You don't think about them being so tough to make.
But they're super important.
They're super important. And,
and I think our click-through rates on those, I'm sorry, this is back-end talk, but I should give some context. So we started, as Kh3rtis said, we're doing clips from the episodes, from those renders we make for Spotify and Apple. And we tried out doing new thumbnails, and it seems like Kh3rtis was taking some of the aspects a lot of these people talk about. And you'll see the click-through rate, which is a stat on each video, it's very different from usual, and it's really interesting to see. And you're using a lot of colors, a lot of like star things. You've got us as people on it. I mean, if you're making YouTube content, I know like Kh3rtis talking about doing videos and things like that. It's something to consider doing a thumbnail, because that's the first thing people see.
Yeah, completely and utterly. Speaking of things that people will see, I was thinking about it, but I can't make that segue. Let's have a look at the marketing, shall we?
I was going to say, it is something people will see because they'll see their Wrapped. Spotify Wrapped. You were almost there. You were so close. I just want to, I had a whole thing about like Spotify Wrapped is coming, like, you know, winter is coming from Game of Thrones, because get ready for a gazillion stories and posts of like what your top 5 listens are and things like that. And I think it is cool. I like that aspect, to see what people are listening to. I also like seeing what I've been listening to, because like I was mentioning to my wife, my listens this year have been completely different from normal. Like a lot of more workout playlists that I make, which are metal and things like that. And then I've got the Audionautic playlist, and then, you know, all this stuff. I've been trying to listen to new music. So I'm excited to see how different it's going to be, because for 9 years or 8 years straight, the same song was my #1 song, Constants Are Changing from Boards of Canada. An incredible song, but I'm curious to see if something will top it this time. We'll see. But it's really cool to see, and I wanted to cover it because Spotify is doing something. It's not a lot, but it's something for artists that you can incorporate, and can incorporate you into your listeners' Spotify Wrapped. Do you want to share the screen, or if you want to give any more preamble, go for it.
I want to share the screen here. Yeah, so it's coming up now. Just my internet is being a little bit slow, should we say?
That's all
right. So Spotify Wrapped. We all know as it comes through. We all. Personally, I enjoy it for myself, and then obviously you kind of bite your tongue as everyone else shares there. It's fine. But yeah, so I think this is the best representation that we can see here. So we've got, I think that's BTS. Sorry if it's another nondescript K-pop band. We've got Dua Lipa here, and I have no idea who these. Oh, this Coldplay.
I was gonna say artist. Yeah. We have artists.
All the greats.
Here we have Nickelback.
So we'll just focus on them. It's fine. But yeah, so you can make an intro video, right? That's as far as
just scroll down a little bit. That's a perfect representation, but here is where they talk about it. Get personal with a video message. Now, it sounds like from the writing, I can't actually read it at the moment. Maybe zoom in a little bit. But it sounds like you're not guaranteed to be put in anyone's Wrapped. But it doesn't seem like that much effort. You can make up to a 30-second quote, their quotes, thank you video on a mobile device. They say it has to be vertical. And they say make sure your video has no music, singing, or lyrics, no explicit content, no logos or brands, and no added text, graphics, or filters. So one thing maybe you could do, I don't know, just if you're not comfortable going in front of the camera, you could maybe create some sort of canvas or something like that and just talk over it. I think the key thing here is the talking, but basically you're just giving a thank you for everyone listening. I have a feeling it may only pop up if you're someone's #1 listen or something, or maybe in your top 5 or something. I don't know. We'll see. They're not saying, but I think they say, where is it? Hold on 1 second. In under 30 seconds, record a video to let fans know what their support meant to you in 2022. You can thank your fans, tease what you're working on next, or tell a story that defined your year. They're talking about stories, so there's a clue. Even they're saying, get an interesting story in, you know, so that's probably the more interesting, maybe, if it's not just an algorithm, which it might be. Here it is. Upload your video through Spotify for Artists as soon as possible, no later than November 18th, so you got a few weeks, for an opportunity to be featured in your fans' 2022 Wrapped experience on Spotify. So, no guarantee. And it also sounds like they're going to be incorporating some new functionality to Wrapped this year with video and things like that.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money there. I think I read through the email that I got through to my inbox the other day, and it was saying if you're someone's top artist, then it will pop up.
Oh, did it say that? Okay.
And unless anyone's listening to Curtis, unless any of my 1,000 or so followers on Spotify I'm their top listener.
You never know. And that I did want to mention that Spotify. Spotify Wrapped for artists is very interesting if you want to see your progression and trends and where people are listening to you, how you're developing, if you care about Spotify at all. And we always say it's important to get your music everywhere. I mean, unless you have a complete issue with Spotify, which is totally justifiable, I would recommend getting your music up there because it's a way to get people to find you and funnel them to Bandcamp, things like that. But it's a very interesting way to see your growth and trends, at least on Spotify. And just really quickly, I wanted to mention, I had posted, it's anecdotal, of course, but I had posted a story when Radiant Visage came out, and I said, hey, let me know if you want a link to the album, and I put Spotify, Apple Music, or Bandcamp, and it was 72% wanted Spotify. So if you don't put your music there, you are missing some listens. If you care about those ethical issues and things of that nature with streaming and stuff, I understand. I'm not saying you have to do it, but it is something to consider just seeing those numbers.
It is definitely the place where people try before they buy, and but it's just the way it is. And yeah, we don't, it's the as we've continued down this road, when you employ things like that consistency and you kind of get your feet into the game of the engine and running, you know, people do listen and then people tag on and they hit that follow button and they do just keep listening to whatever you have, and before you know it, you got people messaging you saying, hey, really love the new track, and this one that you made 3 years ago, that's pretty okay too. I mean, not as good, but I mean, hey, still quite nice.
Well, isn't that an interesting discussion moving into that fan study we're going to talk about?
Yeah, completely. Yes. So we have a brand new fan study coming through. Sunwarper, tell us all about this.
Yeah, well, I saw it. A fan study is something Spotify does, and if you're on Spotify for Artists, you can read these fan studies. They're very interesting. Even if you don't use Spotify or have your music on Spotify, it's interesting to see where listens are happening, what type of music is charting, all this stuff, just out of sheer curiosity. This is our marketing section, so we're talking about marketing. But they put up a new one that I was like, this is Eonlake all over it. And it's about catalog. Because Eonlake always talks about how he hates everything is now, you got to have a new song every week or month. You got to have the newest thing. It's got to be the newest thing. Have the chorus at the start of a song. I'm sure he can rant much better than I.
Chuck it in the bin and do another one next week.
And he may have a rant incoming, but it might be a positive rant due to this thing. But the study is talking about what they call catalog, also known as discography. Sorry, not discovery. They're saying old tracks can learn new tricks. What they have on this metric is that their global weekly top song chart, represented by the songs of catalog, so discography, older songs, has increased by 155%. As of 2022, almost a third of charting songs are catalog or old songs.
Now, I wonder if this is to do with very successful sync placements.
Well, they talk about that down below, aren't you? Man, you are on it. Curtis, go back to the screen. I wanted to talk because there is a bit of a thing I wanted to mention in terms of, I wonder if there's a detriment to the constant new music, because it said people under 25 have increased their listens of songs from the 80s, which is when I'm just wondering if there's a thing maybe to be said about not necessarily quality, but, you know, artists were spending time on music back then, and maybe there's something there. I don't know. I think music done quickly can be really incredible, but I just thought it was interesting that they said people under 25. I think it's at the very bottom, but they talk about the sync licensing there, and I think they have Running Up That Hill and a couple other really big songs. So I'm sure you're right. But yeah, Nostalgia Has No Age. That's the one. That bottom one.
Nostalgia has no.
Yeah, it's the next one. Go down one.
Where are we?
Right there. I don't know if you're still there. It seems your internet's
okay.
Jumpy. Yeah, younger listeners dig the oldies.
There's a bit of a lag. It's destroying my C drive.
We'll switch it off in a second. I just wanted to show that chart. So younger listeners dig the oldies. For listeners under 25, over the past 4 years, their portion of total streams represented by music from the 80s has increased by 45%. Also something probably to be said about synthwave music and vaporwave and all those things. But I just thought it was interesting, and I think it brings up an interesting question of, like, why are people listening to that beyond just the sync placements and things like that?
Because the thing is, when I was young, it was kind of deeply uncool to listen to anything before your time. But there seems to be an attitude that is pervasive now. I think people are more prepared to look at stuff from back in the day before they were born, maybe, and listen to what was going on, partly because of these TV shows and, you know, being able to pick some of the gold. from days gone by. I don't know, but it's good that changes anyway.
Yeah. Do you have anything? I'd love to hear your take on all this information because you always talk about this. So I'm just curious to see what your thought is on it.
Well, I just, we're artists, right? The disposable nature of what we do is not good for what we do, is it? I mean,
No.
it's encouragement that everything's got to be new, and if it's not new, then it's somehow of less value. We know it's not true, but at the same time, there are certain companies that's how their platform works. They're not trying to destroy music, even if they are. That's how their platform works. That's the nature of what they're doing. It's not everything. I mean, if there's one thing I've learned from listening to your marketing tips and all this information that we put out, it's that it varies per platform, and your approach really should be tailored per platform.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's encouraging that, music that already exists, heritage artists are still getting a look in, that people are looking, to not just what the industry is ramming in their face, because to a certain extent, that's what it is, right? I mean, that's what they spent their money on. That's what they bought up all the radio slots for you to hear. That's what you're going to be listening to, right? Because somebody spent money on it and they need their money back. So be an obliging soul. So it's nice to see that there is still, real life going on. People going, what's that? I like that. I'm going to listen to that. Mm-hmm. There's the sort of thing that we used to do and still do now. And it's the sort of thing that keeps smaller artists going, really. It's just the fact that somebody can stumble across it and go, I like that. I'll have it. Thanks.
I'll have that. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. And Curtis, what about you? Oh, I'm sorry, Eonlake. Go ahead.
I don't think I'll be filming a thank you message for Spotify this year. I think I'll probably take the year off if we need to be number one. But I will say, if anyone has ever listened to me on any platform at any time, any of my songs, thank you. If you know me at all, you'll know that I'm very grateful. And that's my thank you. I won't be putting one on Spotify.
Well, I
could use it.
I'm waiting for my Christmas
card. Wrote her songs.
I just wanted to say, though, why not spend 30 seconds, though, just writing? You never know. There might be someone that listens to it, or maybe that's not true and we read it wrong or something, that it might go into someone's...
I don't know. Yeah, maybe you could...
I mean, I'm hoping to hear your voice on my Spotify rap. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, that's
I'm like, it's a personal
thing. You want me
thing.
to record a message for you?
I would like that. Yeah.
I'll give you a cut rate. I can use all these dirty words you like.
No, I want it clean, man. Curtis, what about you?
I think it's good. I see it as kind of like a... I wonder. I don't see it. I wonder if it's kind of like the phase 2 or phase 3 of Spotify. Like Spotify kind of like it grew, and the quick paced notion of Spotify, the radio and the new releases every week and all that stuff. That's how they needed to kind of establish themselves as the giants they are. Mm-hmm. And like you say, like there are people now coming back and going back through discographies, back through catalogs, back to see the older stuff, that kind of thing, and because it's all there and it's all free. It's
never been easier, right?
Exactly. It's never been easier. It's never been so cheap to do, which is obviously, I mean, we're not going to get into the whole artist payment debate now, but it's kind of, it's refreshing to see. I wonder if we're going to keep on seeing it. I wonder if we're going to keep on, if it's going to, we know that Spotify is going down a more kind of like social media route. We know it's going down to more kind of, exactly. We know this. We know it's kind of turning into a new YouTube specifically for music. And I wonder if this is going to be a space. We talked a lot this episode about people, or the need to create a story, the need to create a space, the need to create a pocket of space on the internet for your music and your story. Bandcamp does it to an extent, but it doesn't do it great. And I wonder if Spotify, being the giant it is, we're going to see more of that.
Would you classify Bandcamp as a giant now, though, being owned by Epic?
Well, I mean, it's
in its like growing phase, I'm sure, but I'm still very curious to see what's going to come from that, because They're
I know.
laying dormant right now, but I think something's going to happen there.
Well, they're not. I wouldn't say they're laying dormant. Well, I mean, they're laying dormant, but they have just released this week. They have got a ton of job openings, so they are doing
That's
something.
true.
The
Yeah,
beast
that's
the,
true.
The,
So something's
the
coming.
dragon is stirring, so to speak.
That's a nice way to put
It's
it.
owned by China as well. That
Oh,
fucking
yeah.
works.
Well,
Yeah.
does Epic is
Yeah,
Epic
it's-
owned
it's-
by like 50% China or
I
something?
think it's 10
10
cents. I
cent?
think
Yeah.
Maybe they can correct us.
Really quickly though, Hydrofighter in the chat says he's going to edit Eon's thank you message and add it to his Spotify. Yeah, well then
go.
maybe I'll still get that message on my Spotify rap. So yeah, it's a win-win for me. I say go for it, Hydrofighter. But before we go off, I just want to ask, and if you're listening to this later, you can put it in the comments. Do you use Spotify as an artist? Are you planning to do one of these videos? And what's your take on the video aspect of it? Where do you think it's maybe going?
Yeah. I think if you're anything like me, you need to look at it and imagine somebody else in the marketing, because they pick like, you know, mega famous people and it all looks a little bit on rails and cheesy. Maybe try and put somebody that you really like on there when you look at it and make up your mind about what you think.
Just give that Aphex Twin smile, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Just take a cup of window liquor. Oh yeah, actually, it's not such a bad idea.
I mean, it's interesting you say like obviously if we're looking at the three, we had BTS, we had Dua Lipa, and we had Coldplay, three of the most mainstream pop-y artists that you got, right? They're obviously gonna have some really cheesy
write their own songs.
Exactly. We're not gonna have something cheesy, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, hey, thank you so much for doing this," all that jazz, right? But I mean, I got 1,500 listeners on Spotify. There is no way that I'm gonna do something cheesy like that. I'm gonna probably say, "Thanks, Mum. I really like the fact that you're listening to my work."
Isn't that kind of
really
cheesy in its own right?
Well, it's like just you can play. What I'm saying is you can play with it. You can have a bit of fun with it. You don't necessarily have to do something that's pandering. Just be you.
And
Just
I mean,
be you.
Spotify says,
don't.
Spotify says don't do this or that, but I mean, yeah, exactly. You don't know if you're even going to get on it, especially, you know, if you're a small independent artist. So do what you want. If you want to do some crazy, it's like cool visualizer or something, go for it. You know, you never know if it gets on it. It might be memorable, and there's your story again. And we're tying back into having a memorable story.
Look at that. And I think that's a good way to put it. I mean, just make it look good, dude.
Mom, do a little dance.
I might just put Obi, my dog.
Yeah,
you're like Obi appreciates you listening to my music.
Yeah.
Hey, he's the cute one, not me, so I might as well.
Exactly.
Thanks to you.
I think so. We'd like to know what you're planning for your Spotify wrapped up, if that's what you're going to be doing. But yeah.
Hydrofighter did answer. He said Spotify isn't my thing. I think the message option is great for people on the larger level who don't have the ability to reach out to each fan on a personal basis. Yeah. That's true. But I do still think, I mean, video and just talking is a very good way to connect with someone, whether you're big or small. So I wouldn't just neglect that type of format.
Yeah.
Whatever size or, you know, anything that you are as a musician.
Yeah. Although it is hard to believe sometimes that my lack of, you know, stratospheric success is just because people haven't seen my face enough.
I mean, I
don't think it's that.
I see your face and I listen to your music, so, you know.
Yeah.
I appreciate putting up with either of them.
It's a pleasure, sir. I think that is a lot of it. I think, again, with that thing, and maybe that's something we can talk about next week, because we're short for time now, but I think, again, consistency is key. When we started Audionautic, Sunwarper and I were like, we're just going to do audio for now. And we're going to record.
Well, that was my nerves on my part. I was like, I hate doing video and live and this and that.
That's my point. That's my point. And now look at us 2.5 years later. We're doing live streams every Wednesday. And I don't know about you guys. I do some preparation for the show. We make the stuff in, but I think for the first 3 weeks, I looked at everything intrinsically before we started. Now it's like, oh, it's 7:15. I should probably log on, and we just go with it.
Well, at least one of us, me, looks at everything and jots notes about each thing.
Well, I just keep it all up here, don't I? Keep it all up here.
Sometimes I remember to read my notes as well.
All the hard work comes after, because when we log off, then the editing starts, and that's
the renders and the edits. Yeah,
exactly. So I'll see you on Thursday morning somewhere.
Yeah. I look forward to it. No, I like doing the editing stuff. It's fun.
Yeah, it's good.
I put it at like 1.5 speed, so we just sound like chipmunks. then I just edit out like certain things and stuff.
Nice. It's the
Wish
way
it
to go.
went out like that.
Yeah,
Oh.
I almost accidentally did for the last video. I had it still set at 1.5 and I hit render and I was like, oh crap. And I just shut it and redo it. Yeah.
So yeah, with that, I think we'll we'll bring that to the end. So thank you ever so much for tuning into this show. It's been a fun show. It's been back and forth and everything.
Yeah.
You guys in the chat have been absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for joining us. We're
Yeah.
a small community, but we really vibe at the fact that you're here, and you know we love answering your questions. We love talking to you. So thank you so much.
Yeah. And with that, I mean, we'll be back next week. We love to seeing you guys. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.
Completely.